Great. Let's bow heads and pray. Father, we want to thank you for this evening, Lord. Blessed is your name. Blessed is your kingdom, Father. Blessed are you, Lord, that brings on the evenings, Lord. It gives us strength to worship you, Lord, and to study in your presence. Father, I just commit this time into your precious hands. May your presence in your Shekinah glory be constantly and ever with us and in us and through us. We pray all of this in Yeshua's name. Amen. Warm welcome everybody to the Shiur this evening for this evening Shiur and this Parashat this week. In continuation to our study of the book of Vayikra and the book of Leviticus, we are going to study the next succeeding Torah portion. Last week, we studied a very deep subject about the insights in the Korbanot, and we've seen that the Korbanot on a surface level are not what it is, right? It's a much deeper level of understanding of the Korbanot in many, many ways. After the book of Shmini deals with the rectification of Aaron and his sons and about the Mishkan and about the setting of the Mishkan, and finally the Mishkan is ready and they're ready to do Avodah for 24 hours, right? This is what they were practicing for 7 days, and the 8th day was the inauguration of the Mishkan, and finally they were ready. Now the Torah, or the book of Leviticus, takes a turn and it talks about something very, very fundamental, which I'm going to talk to you today about. In fact, we do this every year, but today it's a slightly different kind of approach I'm going to give to this, but hopefully it makes great meaning for everybody. Now, before I go to the book of Vayikra, I want you to turn to the book of Ephesians, chapter 3, and we're going to read chapter 3 of Ephesians out there. And we're going to read verse 16 that says, verse 16 says, La tet lachem lefi asar kavdo lehit chazak bezavura al yadei ruachu le'adam hapanemi. Ruachu le'adam hapanemi. If I read this in the English, it would something in the KJV. It would sound something like this: that he would grant you, according to the riches of his glory, to be strengthened, chazak, to be strengthened with might by his ruach, by his spirit, in the pinimi, in the inner man. Now, many, many times we've studied about pinimi and this concept of pinimiyut. What is pinimiyut? Pinimiyut is the innards, the inwardness of a person, or the inner man. And Rav Shaul is constantly talking about the inner man in the book of Ephesians, book of Corinthians, book of Romans chapter 7. We read it vastly spoken about. Matthew, Yeshua talks about, I think he says in the book of Matthew, let me read it out to you. So he's chastising the scribes and the Pharisees in Matthew chapter 23. He's saying, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites specifically, for you are like whitewashed tombs, which on the outside appear beautiful, but inside they are full of dead man's bones and all uncleanness, all tame, all tuma. They're filled with Tuma. So you too outwardly appear righteous to men, but pinimiyut, inwardly you're full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. So Yeshua is proposing and is talking to them on a level which is very deeply entrenched into the book of Leviticus. And the book of Leviticus, now it's jumping onto this topic because it has got these two Torah portions that are absolutely amazing and talk about the concepts of Tuma and Tahara. How important is purity, Tuma, and Tahara? I think as believers, we have completely abandoned the concept of Tuma and Tahara, which is extremely important for us, but we've gone completely oblivious to it because we've not been trained to identify the Tuma and Tahara that surrounds us and that's constantly attacking us. So therefore, the book of Vaikra is addressing this topic in a very big way because it's essential to understand what Tuma and what Tahara is. Tuma is uncleanness, Tahara is cleanness or purity. Now, when we're using these two terms, Tuma and Tahara, it's not terms of physical cleanliness. So you can take a vessel that looks cleaned, washed very, very well, ready to be used for whatever purpose, but it can still be Tame. Can still be Tame. Because Tuma and Tame cannot be scientifically matriculated or quantified by any scientific parameters except for a spiritual way of looking at it, because it's a spiritual condition. It's not got to do with the physicality of this world at all. When a person, for whatever reason, contracts a level of Tame, of Tuma, and if he does not deal with it, it builds into it adds on to a person, and as the person lives his life year to year, and as he gets older and older, then the Tuma inside of him builds into different anomalous situations and conditions of living, like illnesses and problems and diseases break out within a human being. Now, there are two levels to understand how this Tuma and Tahara work. But we must go back right to the beginning, because if we don't go right to the beginning, we're not going to understand why the Torah is talking so very much about it. Okay. So in the Garden of Eden, God created Adam, and then he formed him from the ground, because when he formed him, he gave him an animalistic nature. He gave him an animal soul. The blood that's pumping, and this pumping blood, the adrenaline of this pumping blood, is purely animalistic in nature. So the entire physicality of your body and the blood, that the soul is attached to the blood, that nefesh is who you are. And then God blows in the neshama, the breath of God, and you become a living being. That's what happened to Adam. He became a living being. But now this nefesh is in a place that is separated from God. Separated from God. Now, why did God have to create the animalistic soul? Because the animalistic soul is so beautiful, it's so essential to God, or to each one of us also. I mean, just think that if you do not have an animalistic soul inside of you, or animalistic nature, you would not be who you are. You would just not be who you are. So God has made this animalistic soul for a purpose. And whatever the animalistic soul is, it is beautiful in the sight of God. So whatever God has created, and kept at a certain spiritual level. And though it has fallen to a lower level than the original, yet God was going to elevate it from down to a much higher level. So he's going to take that animalistic soul, that is your talents and your personalities and who you are as a person and how your desires and everything you are as a person. And if it is brought into perfection and controlled, it's beautiful in the sight of God. So God's going to elevate that finally and attach it to your resurrected body. And then you're going to have all these things, but it's going to be in a state of perfection in time to come, in Olam Haba. So that's basically what happened. Now when they sinned, God had to protect the inside, the pinimiyut of a person. He had to protect the DNA or whatever, let's call it the spiritual DNA, not the DNA that you and me know. There is a coding in the spiritual level that God has coded for each one of us. Okay? And that had to be protected. So when that protection was put by way of the skin that God put on and protected the person from inside, the pinimiyut from inside, it's because the contamination, the zohama from the outside of creation that was brought through by the serpent, the instrument of Hasatan, was now attacking Adam or going to attack Adam and Chava right in the pinimiyut. That means he would destroy every fabric and strand and string of existence coding that God had created. And before that really happened to a great extent, God gave them a skin and said, okay, all this is going to remain out. It's not going to go inside. Nevertheless, the damage to the pinimiyut had already occurred. The damage to the pinimiyut had already occurred. Why? Because the pinimiyut now has got the stain of death. Has got the stain of death. Therefore, every human being dies. That's it. But the skin outside that God gave in the book of Genesis, the or, ayin, vav, resh, right? The or, not aleph. Aleph, vav, resh is light, or. Ain, vav, resh is or, skin, from where we get the word orla, which is foreskin that needs to be circumcised. So therefore the skin, this orla, was given to Adam, okay, and Chava, and Adam now finally has to find a way out. Humanity has to find a way out of the skin. The skin makes two different, it acts in two different purposes. One, it protects the fruit that is inside, like a fruit. So you take an orange, it's got this thick skin, and it protects the fruit inside, right? It keeps the fruit hydrated and juicy. Or you take something like a walnut, which is really hard, or another fruit that's got a very hard shell outside. That also protects the inside. It protects the fruit from inside. The harder the protection, the skin that's outside, the more difficult it is for that fruit to come into its perfection. So the same is with the human being. That skin that God gave has to be circumcised. That was the Brit Milah, the covenant of circumcision that was given to Abraham, and he had to teach subsequent generations how to be in the process of circumcising that skin, which you cannot see with your physical eyes, okay, because the heaviest part of you, the most contracted part of you is your physicality. So Adam and Chava were more ethereal in their being. They had a physical body, but they were more like the body of the resurrected Yeshua, not like human being. We are living in a more contracted, blocked light. We are living in blocked light, therefore we are heavy. Everything is heavy inside of us. Okay. Now, since the pinimiyut of a person is already contaminated and the contamination has been contained by keeping the skin out. What is the purpose of the skin? In Kabbalistic terms, on Torah terms, the sages call the skin klipa. What do they call it? They call it the klipa. The klipa protects the inside of you, okay, and it protects the darkness, the pollution, the zuhama from the outside, from entering inside. Very, very important. Until and unless the pinimute from inside finally starts absorbing divine light and the light inside becomes greater than the zuhama or the pollution that's outside. Okay, and when that happens, finally, that's the covering, that skin or the klipa that each one of us have will start tearing. And this is what it means that when Yeshua died on the cross, the veil was rent, that full skin was torn, right? And finally, he took that inner light and he tore it. Humanity now has hope that the klipa, the skin, has been torn by Yeshua. And likewise, we have to follow in his footsteps and say, Lord, I want to become like you, and I want that to understand how do I circumcise myself the way you did. I need to remove the skin and come out. The inner light has to be much more greater than the light outside. Okay, I think in the book of Psalms 51:6, Rav shouts, King David, see what he says. He says, behold, you desire truth in the innermost being, and in the hidden part, you will make me know wisdom. It's a very beautiful saying. Proverbs 20:27 says, the spirit of man is the lamp of the Lord. Spirit of man is the lamp of the Lord. And the spirit of man that's enveloping the pinimute, your inwards, the inner person of who you are, is the lamp of the Lord, searching all the innermost parts of his being. So here is what I want to differentiate now. Paul talks about the inner man, the pinimute, and he talks about the outer man, pinimute. I think in the book of Corinthians, 2 Corinthians 4:16, he says, I'm just reading these verses out for you, so you'll get a whole picture of everything. Therefore, we do not lose heart, he says, but though our outer man is decaying, our kisinut is decaying, yet our pinimut, our inner man, is being renewed day by day. What does he mean by this? What does he mean by this? He means to say that the sin of the Garden of Eden has put a state of death in our pinimut, but it's contained and the light is very, very faint. It's very, very faint. Once we start practicing getting that divine light through Yeshua, because Yeshua is that light, it gives us that light, we are going to be able to let that light shine from inside out. But the outside of the human being, the chisinut, which you see visibly, which is God, the skin, this orla, which cannot be seen, but the transcendence of it, the outer man, is decaying because the zuhamma, the pollution of this world, and the tuma of this world is constantly attacking you. It's like, have you all ever played paintball? Many of you have probably played, you take these paintball guns and you're hunting each other and you're shooting each other and you're splashing colors, and you come out completely colorful as a person. So it's exactly what is happening in the spiritual realm. Each time you gravitate towards sin and unholiness, Tuma comes like a cannonball and sticks to your klipa. It sticks to your klipa. So therefore, in the spiritual realm, we are constantly, if you are able to see yourself in the spiritual realm, you're going to be a horrible sight because you're full of Tuma. The entire being is full of Tuma. And this is where we need to sit every day. The scriptures and the wisdom of our fathers and forefathers is very great. Sit before the presence of God and cleanse yourself. Reduce the Tuma that's coming and attaching itself like patchwork, like mud has been thrown upon you. Reduce the Tuma to a very great extent. The more you clean it, the more you will do well. You will be able to have a better quality of spiritual life. And this is where the connect is now. So this is where the connect is. Now, when we're reading the book of Leviticus, the book of Leviticus is specifically not able to deal with the Pinimiyut. Although the Pinimiyut was supposed to be dealt with, because God told Moses, the laws of Qurban or the Korbanot, what we studied last time, is that you will approach and you will cleanse and you will approach. So what does God want? God wants, he told Moses, since you are already, contaminated in that klipa, in the shell outside, you will take the blood of an equivalent animal that corresponds to your animal soul, and you will take the blood of that animal and you will cleanse the klipa of your outer man, okay, and you will be able to come before me in Korban, in the process of Korban. Now, the fault line out here is that if I do a problem in the morning, if I have create a big sin or a transgression in the morning, and in the afternoon, I rush to the Beth HaMikdash and I give my korbanot, my sin offering, and this, and I come, and God says, you give it and you're forgiven. He forgives you. The Old Testament forgives you for that. But what happens when I come back out and I come back home and there is another situation and I'm irritated all over again and I sin again? I'm left in a quandary because I'm going to repeat this morning, noon, and night every single day till I'm saying I cannot do this anymore. That's it. I give up. Why? You will give up because you're dealing like a bandit. You're not dealing with the source of the problem. What is the source of the problem? The source of the problem is not the klipa and the source of the problem is the pinimiyut, is what's inside of you. That has already got the state of death. And it's decaying at a slower rate than the outside. So, all the korbanot, though they were meant for rectification, but it was dealing on the equivalent level of the animal view. Therefore, God said, if you sin, you're going to get contaminated, you come and give a korbanot and deal with it. But they were not able to maintain that. And they were not able to bring that and finally allow the divine light to clean even the Pinimiyut. It never happened. And God knew the frailty of humanity, so he brought an equivalent. What did he do? He brought an equivalent human source to deal with the human Pinimiyut that you and me have. So now we have Yeshua, who is the equivalent to a human being, not an animal, that is going to deal with our Pinimiyut. So the role of Yeshua now is that he changes me from the inside. He removes, he's working from the inside, he's dealing with the Pinimiyut, and by dealing with the Pinimiyut, he's attacking the problem why a human being goes on to commit sin and transgression. So once the Pinimiyut is rectified to a great extent, then the kissing of the outside by default automatically gets affected in everything. Gets affected in everything. So therefore you're able to clean the outside, you're able to bring the outside into rectification because your Pinimiyut is rectified from the inside. This was not possible with the blood of sheep and goats and chickens, even what they try to do today. It is not possible because you're still dealing with your animal self, you're not dealing with the human self. Very, very simple. Okay. So when I'm talking about Pinimiyut now, Pinimiyut is about your inwardness. How do I perceive myself from my inwardness? And when I use the word inwardness, I do not mean or connote the word called introspection. Introspection is very, very different from Pinimiyut. Why? Because introspection is and can be very superficial, but not Pinimiyut. To explain it, Pinimiyut is the essence of who you are. Contaminated. That's it. If the apple is bad, it's bad. You can't do anything about it. A bad apple can sit and introspect how to maintain his badness for the rest of his life. So introspection, or the scientific method that many psychologists or clinical psychology talks about, or even a common human being says, you don't introspect in your life, what are you doing? You're looking deep inside your thoughts and your actions, and you're saying, okay, I need to change this, I need to rectify this, I need to do that. And that's fine. It is effective, but there's no guarantee that you've solved the problem. Why? Because your source, the latent you, your Pinimiyut, which is who you are, still effective. It's still in a place of contamination. There is no rectification in the Pinimiyut as yet. So therefore, you will continue introspecting in your life and say, I will stop this, I will stop this bad habit. I'll go to the 12 steps of alcoholism. I will go to rehab because of drugs or substance abuse or overeating or overdoing this and all types of. The human Pinimiyut is a very scary place because you can look deeply inside of you and you can be really scared of what you can find. Really scared. And all our lives, every moment of our life, we are constantly evading who we are. We are evading who we are. Even in public, we've got the show on of everything that we do and say, oh, what a great personality, what a good orator, what a good motivator, what about this, that, what a holy person, looks so great, what a great man of God, beautiful, this, that. That's not who you are. You are who you are when you are alone. What you do when you're alone matters, not what you do in public only. And when you're alone, you are constantly introspecting and you're adjusting your environment to the evil that you are. So how do you deal with the enemy? And this is where I think is the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament. Because the Old Testament is dealing like introspection and using a bandage for the animal side of you. But the New Testament is opened up and you kind of Jesus, Yeshua comes and he says, listen, I am not come here to give you a bandage. I've come so that the pinnacle inside of you is overhauled, it's regenerated, it's made completely new. 2 Corinthians 4:16. Therefore, we do not lose heart, but through our outer man is decaying, because God has ordained it to decay and to go back to its dust. Yet our inner man is being renewed day by day, considering that you are in the process. Considering that you are in the process, your inner man is being renewed day by day. Colossians 3:10, a beautiful verse. For we have put on the new self, being renewed, listen to this, being renewed to a true knowledge according to the image of the one who created him. Our entire rectification is to come back to the image and likeness of God that we were created in. We are in that process. So by renewing the pinimiyut in this person, in every person, we will become like Yeshua, because Yeshua walked perfectly in the image and likeness of God as how humanity was created from. There was no stain of death inside Yeshua. That's why he says very clearly, he says, just as the Father has life inside of him, so has he given the Son also to have life inside of him. That's a very, 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 very big statement covering, very, very big statement. And if you have not understood it, it's this. Yeshua never came to do miracles. Yeshua never came to become a king, a melech. Yeshua never came to declare to the whole world that I am the Son of God and I am the. He did not come for any of that. He only came to this land of Israel, to his Jewish nation, to bring back his Jewish people back to the image and likeness of God by dealing with their pinimiyut, removing the sting of death that was there and giving them that light, so they were able to finally shine that light from inside out and circumcise themselves from this klipa that will bring in the resurrection of the dead and the final rectification, regeneration of all things. That was the goal of Yeshua. That's it. Everything until him now is a kind of patchwork, is a kind of band-aid. And now when we read Vaikra, after I've given you this foundation, when you read Vaikra, you will understand, man, this is amazing. Absolutely amazing. So now turn with me to the book of Vaikra, and we're going to read chapter 12. That's Parashat Tazriya. Tazriya simply from the word zara. Zara. Zara means seed. Seed. Okay, let's read. It says, by the Ber Adonai el Moshe lemor. And these are the words the Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, the bear el bene Israel le'emor, Isha ki Tazriya vayalda zachar matea shivaat yamim beni nadat dotha akhataya. I have to start using spectacles and read. Anyway, the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the children of Israel, saying, when a woman conceives and gives seed and gives birth to a male, a zachar, she shall be impure for a 7-day period, as during the days of her menstrual cycle, infirmity, shall she be impure. On the 8th day, the flesh of the foreskin shall be circumcised. For 33 days, she shall be in a blood of impurity. She may not touch anything sacred. She may not enter into the sanctuary until the completion of her days of purity. All that we touched on. Now, because the state of the human being is fallen, it is contaminated, what are we dealing with? Everything is dealing with the animal out here. It's not dealing with the pinimute. Therefore, when a man and woman come together, and they come in sexual union, the sexual union also needs the evil inclination, because if you don't have that evil inclination, you're not going to mate. And the man is not going to give seed, and the woman is not going to contribute her seed. And there's not going to be any conceivement. There has to be an attraction. There has to be an animalistic attraction. God has created this. But all this is happening in a level of Tuma and impurity. Therefore, the woman gets contaminated because she has received in the spiritual realm, touching and receiving and giving is very, very great, because it's not simply just shaking hands or receiving. It is transference of spiritual contamination or purity. Much more on the physical level. You're transferring Tuma or Tahara from everyone you meet, everyone you shake hands with, everyone who nudges into you, bumps into you, the glass they drink and you drink from. Everything has Tuma in it. And this piles up inside of us. And when we're 40 and 50 years of age, we're sitting before God and saying, Lord, my back is paining, my legs, my knees, this thing is affected, my stomach is affected, my liver, my kidneys, my heart, I've got blood pressure, I've got this. God is saying, you're ignorant of Tuma. You've contracted all the Tuma in the world. No. Paul says, he says, although outside man is dying, let it die. But the inner man now has been dealt with. Therefore, the corresponding soul of a human being was given to us as a rectification for our human soul, and that the pinimute, and that has been rectified. Great. I hope you all have got this. It's very, very important. So Tazriya talks about now in the state of impurity. And today also, everybody is still in the state of impurity. The sages of Israel even say today that even in Israel, be it the chief rabbinate, the chief rabbi, the Kohens, the Levites, everybody, they are all Tuma today. Everybody is Tuma. Israel is not Tahor. There is nobody in Israel who is Tahor today. Their explanation is that they do not have the para aduma. They don't have the red heifer to cleanse. But even the para aduma is still cleaning the animal self. They don't have the ashes of the para aduma. Therefore, everybody in Israel is Tamil. Oh, but only if they would come to deal with the Pilimiyut, just like the Gentile who also has to come to deal with the Pilimiyut, both have to deal with the inner inwardness. Therefore, Rav Shaul says in the New Testament, it was impossible for the blood of goats and sheep and everything to give you this final solution. It was impossible because it was not dealing with the latent who you are. The difference between introspection and who you are and Pilimiyut is this. Introspection makes you sit and think and manage your Tuma. Okay, I'm going to stop this, I will do this, this is the way I'll behave, maybe I'll change my attitude, do this, do this. It's good, it's effective, it's great. But you're contaminated from the very eons of time. That who's going to change, who has the power to rectify that? Who? None. Is Tuma and Tahara relevant in today's world? Do we who call ourselves Christians, believers, followers of Yeshua, is it relevant in today's world? Now, many may argue and say that no, it's not relevant. Jesus and Yeshua has done away with all this and that. If that was the case, friends, please tell me, why are we still suffering? I had a conversation with a very, very close friend, the pastor, very close friend, leading a congregation, a church. He turns around and tells me, he says, hey, look at my family also. Too much of suffering. Unbearable. Too much of suffering. Look around you. People are suffering. Young people, heart problems, BP problems, skin problems, cancer. You just name it, diabetes, rampant. Small children are suffering from diabetes. Small children, rheumatoid arthritis. Young girls have a full life ahead of them. Because if I have to accept and say that Jesus is done with this, and we do not have to concentrate on Tuma and Tahara, then why are we going through this today? Why? Because we've abandoned the laws of keeping ourselves pure, which is wrong. One is that although we say that we are followers of Yeshua, although we say, okay, we are born again or this or that or whatever you want to classify yourself, I don't classify all this as anything. Trust me, I just stay away from all these classifications. I only know one thing. Rectification is happening inside, yes or no. If I claim that rectification is happening and I'm still having all these problems, it means I'm not doing the right things. And you can be praying for 10 years and 15 years and 20 years and 30 years. I've been praying for so many years, no change. No change. There is another aspect to it. That God allows all this to happen only to purify your body before you pass away into the other world. The suffering itself can be a purifying kind of thing by God. It's a possibility. But if we have a chance to purify ourselves and be secluded to a great extent, don't go into the world and just be like everybody else. Separate yourselves to a great extent. Be careful who you sit with, who you shake hands with. Stop shaking hands. Try your best not to shake hands. You don't know it. You shake hands with somebody who's contaminated and you go home, and then you give lovely thing to your wife, say, I love you so much. No, finish, gone. Contaminated. Finished. Over. You don't know it. After 5 years, you will find something, your wife will say, there is something wrong with me. Why don't we obey these simple things? Oh no, but you know what? We don't have to call it. Jesus has done everything. What are you doing? You're saying one thing and you're bringing all the Tuma into the house. Who you're sitting with, who you're talking, what are you doing? I mean, words, speech, even evil speech brings Tuma into your life. Now, Tuma can be so subtle that if you're not dealing with it from the inside, then it will slowly transcend from the spiritual realm and come into the physical realm. And the first sign of it showing in the physical realm is skin disease. Skin disease. Rashes, eczemas, all that is because the Tuma now is mixed with the blood, and the blood is circulating all over your body, and it's penetrated through the process of osmosis, penetrated deep inside your system, and now what is getting affected? Your skin, because the skin is taking that Ola is taking too much of load of impurities. First thing that gets affected is skin. Okay, let's read further. Chapter 13. Chapter 13. וידבר אדוני אל משה ואל אהרון לאמור, אדם כי אדוני באור, in the skin, בשרו שאת הו ספחת הו, בהרת אדוני באור בשרו לנגע צרעת והובה El Aaron, Kohen, El Ahad, Mimini. And the Lord spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, if a person will have on his skin, on this ore, what I spoke to you about, right? Of his flesh, a says, or a sapachat, or a becheres, or a scab, or a discoloration, and it will become a tsarat, affliction on the skin of his flesh, he shall be brought to Aaron the Kohen, or to one of his sons, the Kohanim. The Kohen shall look at the affliction on the skin of his flesh. If the hair of the affliction has turned white, and the affliction appearance is deeper than the skin of his flesh, it is a tsarat, as an affliction. The Kohen shall look at it and make him impure. And the Kohen shall make him impure. That means the Kohen shall declare this person is good. And say, what have you been up to? Have you been bad mouthing? Have you been doing evil speech? Have you been wandering around with Tuma from this sexual immorality, from this thing, that thing, that thing? What have you been up to? You've contracted Tuma to a very great extent. And now that the skin cannot contain it. It's transcending the spiritual realm and it's come into the physical realm. Therefore, your skin is affected. And such a person will be kept out from the camp 7 days and inspected after 7 days and inspected after 7 days. And once he's clean, he'll have to bathe, wash, shave every bit of his hair on his body. He'll come and give his offerings, sin offering, this offering, that offering, and come back into the camp. As I mentioned before, I told you, this is still dealing with the animalistic side of the human being. And what about the Pinimiyot? And then if you read Tazriya, it goes on and on and on with this. Okay, what's the rectification from the animalistic side of it? If it is a white on the skin of his flesh and its appearance is not deeper than the skin, the Kohen should look at it on the 7th day, and behold, the affliction remained in its appearance, and the affliction did not spread on the skin. Then the Kohen should close him off on a second time for a 7-day period. Go back for 7 days. You're in the process of healing. Go back. And then, okay. But if the skin should spread on the skin after it had been shown to the Kohen for purification, it should be shown to the Kohen again. The Kohen should look, and behold, the mispacha has spread on the skin. The Kohen shall make him impure. It is a tzarat. Now, tzarat is typically translated as leprosy, but it's not a leprosy. It's more like a psoriasis. Okay, it's more like a psoriasis or a fungal bacterial infection that can not only happen to the skin, it can happen to curtains that are moist. It can come on your walls. All these things can happen. Okay. Okay, what's the rectification? Talks about inflammation and talks about separation for 20 days. Oh, let's go to the rectification. I urge you, when you go home, you'll read this because you don't have time. The affliction comes in Metzora, in chapter 14. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "This shall be the law of the Metzora on the day of his purification. The Kohen shall go forth from outside of the camp, and the Kohen shall look, and behold, the tzarat affliction has been healed from the Metzora. The Kohen shall command, and for that person, being purified, they shall be taking 2 live pure birds, cedar wood, a crimson wool, and a hyssop." Where have you read this in the Bible before? Cedar, hyssop, blood. Where have you heard of this before? It was on the night of Pesach, on the night of Passover. It was on the night of Passover. The animal souls were cleansed by the blood of the Passover lamb, by the grace of God, and they were brought out. That was their born again experience. And now, after that, after experiencing that grace and that deliverance, you still fall into tzarat. You're just as good as being in Mitzrayim all over again, and your rectification is going through the process all over again. Hyssop, blood. Wow, absolutely amazing. The Kohen shall command, and the one bird shall be slaughtered into the earthen vessel over spring water. Why vessel? Wow, very beautiful. Because you are a contaminated vessel. Because you and me are contaminated vessels in the sight of God. That blood has to cleanse this contaminated vessel. Over a spring of water, the live bird, he shall take it, and the cedar wood, and the crimson of wool, and the hyssop, and he shall dip them and the live bird into the blood of the bird that was slaughtered over the spring water. Then he shall sprinkle 7 times upon the person being purified from the tzarat. He shall purify him, and he shall set the live bird free upon the open field. The person being purified shall immerse his clothing, shave off his hair, and immerse himself in the water, and become Tahor, pure. Therefore, he shall enter into the camp, but he shall dwell outside. He shall not enter into the camp, he shall dwell outside of his tent for 7 days, and after that he shall enter his camp. On the 7th day, he shall shave off his hair, his beard, his head. He shall be completely no hair on his body, and his eyebrows and all his hair shall be shaved off. He shall immerse his clothing and immerse his flesh in water and become pure. On the 8th day, which is the day of circumcision, finally, he shall take 2 unblemished male lambs, 1 unblemished man. This is a huge process. The process is so huge because if you never kept the process of Pesach properly, you're going to fall into this trouble. You're going to fall into this trouble. Now, we have done Pesach, right, all the time, and we've done what Pesach is, and coming out, and the born again experience to Pesach. But we're reading all this after Pesach. So effectively, they have to redo this entire process. Do you get second and third chances with God? My question is this. Do we get second and third chances with God? Really? Still dealing with the animal soul. Still not dealing with the pinning. Then he will take this thing as a 2 unblemished male lambs, 1 unblemished ewe for his first year, 3/10 of an ephah of fine flour as a meal offering that shows humbleness, and with oil, 1 log of oil, and the Kohen who purified shall place the person being purified along with them before the Lord at the entrance of the tent of meeting. The Kohen shall take the 1 lamb and bring it here for the guilt offering, Asham offering, with the log of oil, and he shall wave them as a wave service before the Lord. He shall slaughter the lamb in its place, where he will slaughter the sin offering and the ola offering. Now, we studied about the khatat, the sin offering, and the ola offering earlier. So you guys are very well versed in this. I presume we've done it over the years. In the holy place, okay, and the guilt offering to the Kohen, it is most holy. The Kohen shall take from the blood of the guilt offering, and the Kohen shall place it on the right ear of the person being purified, on the thumb, right thumb, and on the right big toe of his right foot. The Kohen shall dip his right forefinger, into the oil that is in the left palm, and he shall sprinkle from the oil with his finger 7 times before the Lord. Why 7 times? Because this is the animalistic, emotive side of the human being. Kesed, Gevurah, Hod, Netzach, Teferet, Yisod, Malkut. The 7 below, and the 3 on top, Chokmah, Bina, and wisdom, the Sphirot, that's got to do with the cognitive processes. The 7 below are got to do with the emotive processes, that's got to do with the animal soul. 7 times before the Lord, he will sprinkle because he's cleansing the emotive animal side of you. Therefore, also on the mitzvah, you take the blood and they'll pour it below the red line. You know, there was a red line separating the mitzvah above and below. Below the red line, they would pour the blood, cleansing the animal soul. But you know, we have great news. Yeshua comes and deals with the pinimiyut once and for all. He says, if your pinimiyut is being strengthened as what we have read in the New Testament, and divine light rectifies and removes the stain of death from the pinimiyut, that light is going to penetrate from inside out. All Tuma is going to disappear. All sarat is going to disappear. All crossover from the spiritual realm to the physical realm, disease, everything is going to disappear. You will be shining, and you will be shining like Yeshua on the mountain when he transfigured. Wonderful. You see the goal of everything, friends? It's the goal of it. Now, coming back to this question last. Is it applicable in our life? Very much so. If we are cognizant of the Tuma and the Tahor that we are walking in, our life should be very, very different. I do not know why and for what reason of a human ineptitude and for human carelessness or willfulness, believers in Yeshua for 2,000 years have abandoned the concept of Tuma and Tahor. I do not know why. If we never abandoned it, we would have been living, walking, talking torches of light in this world. For some reason, we've abandoned it. So we're living two lives. One is the inner man is fighting to be with God and getting holy and this thing, and the outer man is going to decay. That's fine. But as long as we have it, do you not think that we should at least maintain it in some kind of purity? It will make our life better. It will make our spiritual life much better. But if you abandon it, then you're going to cry to God, all my families have problems. I'm divorced from my wife. My wife is estranged, and I'm like this. I've lost my job. I've got financial problems. My children don't listen to me. My complain, because we've abandoned the concept of Tuma and Tahor. We brought it all in the house, and the full family level is coming. Little breath, respite we get, because when we go to church and we sing in the presence of God and the worship starts, breath of fresh air. Beautiful. When you come out of church, you're back. Friends, don't fool yourselves. As much as we want to throw away the Old Testament and say, it's not applicable. Hello, it's very applicable if you know how to apply it in the right context. Please, I urge everybody, year after year, I'm urging everybody. And this is not only you, this is me included. Just like you, I have my struggles. Everybody. Cognizance of the fact now. And every day I ask God, I say, Lord, please show me how do I deal with the Tuma and Tahor of my life. How am I dealing with it? Take it seriously, friends. I'm not saying you will become perfect like Yeshua. But at least Yeshua will say, I finally have got somebody who takes everything seriously. Right? Takes things seriously. I think we've got to start. It's been 2,000 years and we've not started. Let's start from now on, friends. I challenge everybody. Let's start. Let's come back to the concepts that we have abandoned for many, many centuries. Let's come back. Let's change ourselves. And I promise you, if we intently, with perfect covenant, get back our intentions and the right way of looking at things and change ourselves, our generations after this. Because if you get pure, your children are going to be pure. And if they become pure, they'll bring forth purer children, and the cycle will start. We will change the world, but it has to start with us, friends. Please take cognizance of this fact. Reflect on what we studied and learned. We do this every Friday. I do not know how much infiltrates into each one of you. I don't know, because your guys don't really talk to me and tell me things. But this is my passion to tell you this. Now you'll want to know why the book of Leviticus is the heart of the Torah. It's not Genesis. It's not about building the Mishkan. Exodus. It's not about numbers, Devarim, Deuteronomy. It's not about Bamidbar, where they done all the nonsense in Bamidbar. The heart of the Torah is Leviticus. If we don't understand Vayikra, Leviticus, we understand nothing. We will not even understand the New Testament. I opened out certain passages from the New Testament to explain to you book of Leviticus and Vayikra. It's turned in sincerity and truth. We are in the season of Pesach. Week after next is Pesach. Let's improve ourselves, friends. Let's make an effort. Okay? So I leave you all with this thought. Let's make an effort. Let's improve our life and let's study. Now we've got a couple of things getting kick-started in the Yeshua. I've started the Darkei Talmidim course seasons 2. I'm still waiting for people. A couple of them have stepped forward and joined the course. Please join the course. It's very, very important. Do not neglect your life. Do not neglect. All of us. I am greatly helped because of you. My spiritual life is dependent on you. I'm telling you this. Please join the course, join our learning, join the Yeshua, bring people. We need to grow. We need to change everything around us. Okay. So yeah. So Shabbat Shalom, friends. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. I'll see you tomorrow morning, 6:45 tomorrow morning for Shachari prayers. If you can, you'll have the link. Please do join us. And yes, I will see you all tomorrow morning, 6:45. Shabbat Shalom. Take care. God bless. I'm putting the recording off now.